Leute, heute bin ich wieder zurück es geht um folgendes Thema. Letzte Woche auf der Michelle Waterson Angela Hill Undercard gab es ein Fake Low Blow und ich wollte darüber reden. Und zwar, es war Rodriguez gegen Herman und Rodriguez hat den ganzen Kampf wirklich dominiert mit Körpertreffer und alles und hat Knie zum Körper gebracht und hat ihn dann letztendlich eigentlich TKO geschlagen, meiner Meinung nach. Aber der Ringrichter hat es als Low Blow empfunden und dann hat Herman natürlich mitgespielt. Und er hat den Upset bekommen. Das heißt, in der dritten Runde hat er noch geschafft, sich mit der Submission zu retten. Also mit einer Kimura. Und ja, ich habe auch mit einem Freund darüber geredet, philosophiert, wie schwer es ist, eigentlich ein Ringrichter zu sein. Weil einerseits musst du den Leuten was bieten, halt, dass die Kämpfer sich zerfetzen, aber andererseits musst du auch auf deren Gesundheit schauen. Und du hast nicht überall Augen, du reagierst nicht schnell genug. Und es ist so, dass auch die besten Referees Fehler machen. Deswegen wollte ich heute von MMA on Point, hat der Tom von MMA on Point ein Video reacten. Und zwar The Top 10 Worst Calls Made by Great MMA Referees. Okay, ich würde mal sagen, legen wir gleich los und let's get it, boys.
Being a referee is truly a thankless job. When you do your work well, you're really not that noticeable, and when you do it wrong, the entire world crashes
Der Typ kann sowieso, den kannst du in die Tonne werfen.
down on top of you. Not only that, but you have to make the right decision in a split second, which is why we should praise those refs who do such a great job consistently in mixed martial arts. But that's not what we're here to do today. Instead, we're going to point out the times those awesome officials made some really big mistakes. Sorry
Jeder macht mal Fehler, wir sind Menschen.
guys, I'm Tommy from MMA On Point, and these are the 10 worst calls by great MMA referees. Number 10, Elio Vigio.
Kenn ich nicht.
It would be hard to find a good referee for UFC 1,
Der schlechteste ist auf jeden Fall Mario Yamasaki.
considering that it was, well, UFC 1. But if you were going to have anybody in the cage, Elio Vigio wasn't a horrible choice. In fact, the red belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner was regularly the third man in Vale Tudo events in Brazil prior to the UFC's first ever show, so he was one of few people on the planet with the experience and knowledge to referee such an event. And while he did a great job, yeah, he completely botched the finish of Ken and Royce's fight. As the legendary Gracie worked a sleeve choke, it's not entirely clear where Vigio was looking as he was positioned directly to the side of both competitors, but he somehow bafflingly missed the huge tapping motion by Ken Shamrock, indicating that he could stand no more. Maybe he was just used to everybody going to sleep during Vale Tudo events, I don't know. But he then approached the two fighters, and they all had a convo about what happened. Ken was forced to tell him he had tapped, and then finally the fight was stopped. This
Okay, das weird. So in dem Moment sagen, ich habe getappt.
would have gone so wrong. Honestly, a controversy here, even though Ken clearly tapped, could have derailed this whole event. It could have derailed the UFC. Elio Vigio almost destroyed MMA single-handedly. Maybe I'm being a bit dramatic.
Ja.
Well, I don't know about that, but maybe.
Number 9, Mark Goddard. It was the fourth round of Kamaru Usman's total domination of Tyron Woodley at
Ja, Tyron Woodley hat keine Chance gehabt. Und seitdem hat er sich auch nicht mehr erholt von der Niederlage.
UFC 235. The welterweight title is on the line. The stakes are high, so of course, you have one of the best referees in the business, Mark Goddard, on the action. Throughout the fight, the commentary team was critical of the referee for their perceived notion that he was too often and too early getting on Usman for not working enough on the ground when he found himself in top position or attempting to finish a takedown.
I really genuinely hope that Mark Goddard doesn't stand them up.
He's getting warned to work while working.
Less than a minute after this discussion, Goddard would stand the fight up despite Usman's Usman's objection and seeming shock at the command, as he felt he was working and doing more than enough to keep the bout where it was. As the fighter stood up, Goddard told Kamaru, "It's a fight." To which the commentary team lost their minds in a semi-professional way. Rogan was just confused. Cruz said
Rogan einfach bester Mann.
did not
Übrigens, wer schaut seinen Podcast? Ich höre seinen Podcast immer, wenn ich zur Arbeit fahre, und nachts, wenn ich nichts zu tun habe, höre ich mir auch an.
understand wrestling, and for the most part, Anik bit his tongue, but did end up voicing his opinion on Twitter later, which he apologized for directly to Goddard. It was certainly a questionable stand-up, but his comment really made no sense, and even Goddard's justification that he was answering Usman's question, which can only be heard as "what," doesn't really hold up at all. Mark did the "I apologize if I offended you" apology on Twitter, which is to say he didn't really apologize at all. However, he did admit that he should probably have used different wording. Yeah, probably. Number 8, John McCarthy.
John McCarthy hat die Regeln von... Er war einer der Mitgründer der Regeln von MMA.
Of war, as
Von
they
den Unified Rules.
can affect even the most veteran referees. Big John McCarthy is just about as good as it gets. In fact, he pretty much made the modern rules of mixed martial arts, so you're not going to catch him slipping too often. But he had a bit of an oopsie at UFC 13, at least in the eyes of many. Tito Ortiz met Guy Mesker in the final of the night's light heavyweight tournament, and after securing an inside cradle, Ortiz was raining heavy knees down on Mesker, who appeared to many to be tapping to the strikes. The commentary team saw it that way, and when McCarthy did step in, many assumed it was the end of the fight. Ortiz in his corner argued with Big John that it was in fact tapping, but as the referee explained it, he was trying to block, not tap. The stop in the action was actually to attend to 2 big cuts that had been opened up by the knees. Now, whether it was a tap or not,
Oha, was für eine wilde Zeit war das, wo noch Knees zum Kopf legal waren.
McCarthy then decided to reset the fight standing instead of giving Ortiz the advantageous position he had earned before the referee stepped in. And
Stimmt, normalerweise müsste er wieder in die Sprawl-Position reinkommen.
wouldn't you know it, on the first takedown attempt once action resumed, Ortiz got caught in a guillotine and was forced to tap. Tito would get his win back at UFC 19, but certainly a strange finishing sequence for the always stellar McCarthy. Number 7, Marco Lopez. As we just saw, the timing of a break in the action by a referee can be critical, and even the slightest delay or hesitation can really do a number on a fight. It needs to be a clear break or no break at all. Case in point, Scott Smith versus David Terrell at UFC 59. The normal
Das sind alles Vorfälle, die ich nicht kenne, außer der mit Tito
solid Marco
und Tyron Woodley.
Lopez was in charge of the fighter's safety that night, and early in the first round, he intended to break up a grappling exchange against the fence due to inactivity on the part of Terrell. Lopez called for a break, and in the split seconds after, Smith listened to the referee and stopped trying to fight his opponent off. Terrell, who claims the referee called for a break and then immediately said continue, used the opportunity to score a takedown, quickly take the back, and get the submission win. Marco just let the fight continue. Smith immediately popped up and got into the referee's face, but as Timberland once said, the damage is done, so I guess I'll be leaving. The fight
Protect yourself at all times. At all times.
ruled a victory for Terrell despite the clear gap here, and Smith even took this thing to the California State Athletic Commission, but as these ruling bodies usually do, sided with the official, and the fight stands to this day. Number 6, Mario
Der beschissenste Schiedsrichter aller
Yamasaki.
Zeiten.
I know what you're thinking. Hold up, Tommy. The title of this video is Good Referees. Are you happy? A joke at our expense. Hard Hands, the guy banned from the UFC, is a good referee. Well, like all great villains, Yamasaki wasn't always bad. Mario started reffing in the late 90s and had a stellar track record up into the 2010s. The first sign of trouble, though, is likely what happened at UFC 142 in a fight between Carlo Prater and Eric Silva. If you recall, Silva was the new hotness at the time and made quick work of Prater in his second UFC fight, destroying his opponent in all of 29 seconds with ground strikes following a big knee. The fight was called off. It looked like another great job by great referee Mario Yamasaki. Not so fast. Turns out he thought the strikes that finished the fight were to the back of the head and he disqualified Silva. Upon replay, it was very apparent that these strikes were clean, prompting a justice-seeking Joe Rogan to do an unprecedented interview with Yamasaki post-fight in which they watched the ending sequence together as Joe questioned his call. Eat your heart out, Dan Hardy. Can you guess what came of this gaffe? Nothing. With no commission, it was on the UFC, and they upheld the decision. Mario would go on to tear.
Das. Das ist einfach ein Grund, ihn nicht zu mögen. Yamasaki. Aber Ehrenmann Joe Rogan.
The promotion until 2018. Number 5, Eve Levine. There are no takebacks as an MMA referee. Well, there are when you make a massive mistake and just play it off as if nothing ever happened. We're at UFC 96. The normally fantastic Eve Levine is overseeing Matt Brown versus Pete Sell. It's early in the fight and Sell is taking a lot of damage from the Immortal, so much so that it looks like a finishing sequence is imminent. When Pete got dropped hard, Levine jumped in to wave off the fight. He literally pulls Matt Brown away. Oh wait though, just kidding. Sell is trying to stand up and stumbling, so I guess he's not as hurt as I thought. Continue. Just pretend I didn't stop the fight.
Was? Was? What the fuck?
So Matt Brown did, and proceeded to beat the shit out of Pete Sell nearly the entire time, complaining to Eve that he should probably go ahead and make this right by calling the bout. Even when Sell basically just laid down on the mat, Levine was still not ready to step in a second time. It took 1 or 2 more shots, with Brown literally just looking at the referee for the fight to be called. Levine is a very good referee, but he had a very bad night here. Number
Jeder hat mal einen schlechten
4, Herb Dean.
Tag.
We have got a fresh wound here. It's UFC on ESPN 14. We're on Fight Island. Herb Dean, who many consider the best in the business.
Ja, das war da, wo, ich glaube, das war da der Vorfall, wo Dan Hardy ihn angeschrien hat.
Very famously in 2019 was the center of controversy for what many saw as an early stoppage in the Robbie Lawler-Ben Askren bout, and here we would have the exact opposite, and arguably far more controversially. In a bout between Francisco Trinaldo and Jay Herbert, Dean allowed the fight to go on unnecessarily after Herbert was dropped and clearly no longer intending to fight. He may not have even been conscious. The delay felt like a year, and the commentary team of Dan Hardy and Paul Felder were screaming for the fight to be stopped.
Come on! It's not over.
Stop the fight! After a few shots on the ground, Dean stepped in, but the party was just starting. Dan Hardy gave the referee an earful once he left the cage, mid-broadcast. So loud, in fact, you could hear him screaming in the background, while the rest of the team...
Sehr unprofessionell. Sehr unprofessionell von Dan Hardy. Ich verstehe seine Message, aber das macht man nicht.
Tried to continue the show.
Punch.
Now you do yours. Gotta look after these fighters, my goodness.
Post-event, Felder and Hardy stood by their outrage, and things just escalated from there. Dean felt the need to defend his stoppage and released a video on his Instagram page as he felt the commentator had had a bit too much influence on the perception of what actually happened. And in turn, Hardy released his own response video to that video, breaking down what happened as he saw it and calling for accountability. In the end, the UFC's investigation into the incident concluded with a stern warning by Dana White, not to Herb, but to Dan.
If you work for me at any capacity and you approach a referee or judge or an official, I will fire you that night on the spot.
Ja, hat recht.
Number 3, Josh Rosenthal. Say what you want about Josh Rosenthal's decision to be a weed tycoon, but the guy has about as good a track record as any referee in the history of mixed martial arts. Chris Weidman versus Mark Munoz at UFC on Fuel TV 4 was not his best moment though. A huge elbow in the second round sent Munoz to the mat, and while he may not have been completely out from the shot, he was getting there. 2 punches in on the ground, and he's probably out, but definitely not defending himself intelligently. The next 14 shots, yes 14, are really just
14 Schläge. What the fuck?
completely unnecessary. It's amazing there was even a head still there once the sequence was finished. Honestly, Dan Hardy might have jumped into the cage and tried to strangle Rosenthal if this happened on Fight Island. To be fair, and a testament to why he is a good referee, Rosenthal admitted to the mistake in an interview on SiriusXM's Tap Out radio show, saying, "I always say accountability is a huge part of the sport, and you are accountable for your actions. I feel like I was just a little slow on the trigger. It's a millisecond basis game. You're making choices right there on the spot."
Ja, aber nicht 14 Schläge unbeantwortet lassen.
And in the heat of the moment, I felt like I was seeing some stuff. In hindsight, I have to step my game up and make sure I'm on point for the next guys. Now that is a damn good referee.
Marijuana.
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 Number 2, Todd Anderson. Todd Anderson is normally a stellar referee. It's why he's on this list, in fact. But his best work was not in the main event of UFC 208 between Holly and Jermaine Durandamy for the inaugural featherweight
Den Vorfall kenne ich.
title. In fact, it's what's landed him so high on our list, as his actions affected the outcome of a title fight. Following the second round, a late shot by GDR rocked home. The shot was blatantly late. It clearly hurt her opponent. It was potentially a fight-changing moment. At this point, the commentary team is already discussing whether or not Anderson should have taken a point there instead of giving a warning, considering the effect the late punch had on the potential outcome of the fight. They absolutely lost their minds when Durandamy threw 2 late punches following the horn the very next round, and Anderson again merely warned the corner and the fighter that if it happened again, he intended to take a point.
Oh my God! You gotta take a point away now!
The rest of the bout went on without incident, but Holm would end up losing the fight on all 3 judges' scorecards by, you guessed it, a point. Holm filed an official complaint against Anderson and asked that the fight be overturned, but New York, after reviewing the case, took no action and kept the decision standing.
Wozu ist diese Organisation überhaupt da? Ich verstehe das nicht. Die machen nie eine Aktion.
If you've learned anything from this list, it's that commission's answer to nobody. Who watches The Watchmen? Number 1, Jason Herzog. It was one of the most brutal beatdowns in UFC history, and when the dust
Ja, das war Teixeira gegen Anthony Smith. Und da hat Anthony Smith gesagt, ich glaube, meine Zähne fallen raus.
and the ambulance was called, there was plenty of blame to be thrown around, and much of it was at veteran referee and staple of UFC events, Jason Herzog. Fight Night Jacksonville, headlined by Anthony Smith and Glover Teixeira, saw the 2 former title contenders duking it out pretty evenly in the early fight. But in the second, Smith was dropped and severely hurt, but was given the chance to recover by Herzog. That decision to let the fight continue would be followed up by 2 10-8 rounds, in which Smith was absolutely destroyed. And yet still the referee felt the fight was able to continue despite the one-sided beating that was taking place. As the 5th came around, it was clear Smith had nothing to offer, and the bout was mercifully stopped about a minute in, but the fight went on way too long. And while many blamed
Sowas muss echt nicht sein.
Anthony's corner for not throwing in the towel on a fight that clearly wasn't going their athlete's way, the buck stops with Herzog, who took to Instagram to issue an apology for the massacre. Smith's face was broken, he lost teeth, it was a giant mess. The Lionheart would go on to defend Herzog, as well as the fight's prolonged beatdown, but the vast majority of commentators, analysts, and fans felt this one went on 11 minutes longer than it needed.
Well, someone tell me, how do I throw a spinning heel?
So Leute, das war's wieder mit dem Video. Ich hoffe, es hat euch gefallen. Wenn ihr Bock habt auf mehr Content, dann liked meine Videos, abonniert meinen Kanal und habe ich irgendetwas vergessen? Kommentiert meine Videos. Jo, das war's. Bye.